And then another time, I made a like a little funny skit, just audio, and added the sound effects and music, and uh made up these voices and stuff. And it was really cool. And I thought maybe I'll play around with your audio um from your audiobook and add some music behind it. And I haven't bought the program yet. I just kind of dabble with it. I wouldn't put that kind of music behind your I'd put something, maybe ambient music or something. Something's really nice
Yeah,
and
it's like yeah, I like music behind stuff. Um, they have this one guru comes to New Vrindavan every once in a while. His name is Satchidananda, and he has this really good program for chanting. He does like, he has like a drone music in the background, while people are meditating and chanting. It's just to enhance the meditative atmosphere. And
yeah,
that's
I
it's
like that too. It's
like
nice to
I do I do mostly like videos and I try to sometimes I put like music behind them, but most of the time it's just like audio from what I'm reading, and the video enhancement it's just part of multimedia. You can use anything in Krishna's service.
yeah.
And the thing is that whatever is favorable, you can use. The way they used to do it 500 years ago, they had to take a leaf, like a palm leaf, and they take like a metal stylus, and they'd press the leaf, and then when it dried, it would turn brown, and then the place where it was pressed with the stylus would turn black, and that's how they write things.
Mm.
Now, that's a pretty long, involved process. The Brahma Samhita that Lord Chaitanya found in that ancient temple 500 years ago, they had to copy that by hand with that method before
Wow.
he could take it out. So that's like now we got like YouTube and all this other stuff. I don't know why Lord Chaitanya himself spread Krishna consciousness all over the world with those primitive um, duplicating means, but now we have instant access to all this stuff and able to communicate it to anywhere. Just like
Yeah,
I'm talking to you from, 500 miles away, or maybe not that far, maybe 300 or 400 miles away
maybe 500. I don't. I wouldn't doubt the 500. I don't know.
from Pittsburgh. Yeah, I don't know. All I
It
know
might
is
be
that
like 700. Yeah, I don't know.
it's pretty far. I mean, I used to live in Whitewater, Wisconsin, in between Madison and Milwaukee, and
Okay,
that was
yeah.
quite a drive. And but so he spread his movement all over the subcontinent of India just by that primitive process of duplicating books. But now we have so many more technological tools available, and they can be used for good or bad.
Yeah, it's amazing too. Like look at this. The audiobook thing is really cool because I'm a laborer and I work. And if I have an audiobook available, well, I can at most of the jobs I've had in the past couple of years, I can listen to an audiobook while I'm working. Doesn't mean I'm focusing 100% perfectly, but it's nice. I can have an audiobook on, and the meaning like I can get some hours in of hearing this stuff that's really beneficial for me. I
Yeah,
forget really easy. So the more I hear, I'm having Bluetooth earphones, uh, and and then having these scriptures to hear uh, like all day while I'm working. I put in so many hours, it's absurd, just in like a short period of time, and just because of this technology, it's amazing.
yeah, it really is. And Prabhupada said, before Prabhupada, when he was here in the 70s, they didn't have Bluetooth technology. They didn't even have Walkmans back then, with
Hmm.
with earbuds, so but we did have the holy name. And Prabhupada said, like factory means hell. And like especially a foundry like that, it's almost like the
Oh
subterranean
yeah,
planets. And
yeah,
he
dude.
said
I
you can
think
chant,
about
you
hell
can
every time I'm there.
press the button and chant Hare Krishna. Do whatever you're doing in the foundry, but just continue to do that and also chant the holy name. Even in your mind, if people are around, you can do that with in your mind. You can do it in your mind, you can do it softly, you can do it out loud. You can do it anywhere. There's no hard and
Mhm.
fast rules for chanting. So that is the benediction of this age that there's no hard and fast rules. And but anyway, my wife wants me to go and get a pizza because today is actually Friday for her because she's been working all weekend
Yeah.
and she likes takeout Friday, you know what I mean? So but I'm not gonna we'll do our thing, but then afterwards I don't want to take too much time here, so we'll just try to get through a little bit here and then I'm gonna go and get a pizza and
All right.
she's just always looking for because she works like a dog all the time. I mean, you've got a hard job, but she works like 10, 12 hours a day. And
Yeah,
she's like,
working 12 hours anything is 12 hours of working all day is a lot of work.
yeah, I mean, she drives around from like 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning till about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then she's got to get on a computer to do all the what they call it Oasis, these computer uh, data input, from all these older people that have to put in like 50 or 100 medications, and it takes, like at 8 o'clock at night, she'll say, well, they owe me at least a half an hour of relaxation.
Wow.
And so she'll quit and make dinner and we'll watch it like a half an hour of the Daily Show or something. And then we'll have to go to bed because she has to get up at 4:30 in the morning the next day to finish what she didn't finish the day before. So she pretty much doesn't have a life. So she really looks forward to like any times that she has off. Since she worked the whole weekend, she's looking forward to what she calls Sunday night sleepy time.
Nice.
So that's everybody's looking forward to the weekend. This is her
Oh
weekend.
yeah.
But
Oh weekend.
we're going to start with Anuccheda 45, I believe. We're just going to go through it as we go through it, and instead of like jumping around, because then it'll be a little bit of continuity to it. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is Anuccheda 45. I'll read the first sentence or paragraph, and then you can read the next two.
Okay.
Anuccheda 245, because the Lord, finding no other means, used the trick of begging to take away the three worlds from Bali, leaving only his body in his possession, bound him with Varuna's rope, and locked him in a mountain cave. Bali spoke as follows.
All right, let me take over.
Yeah.
Indeed, Indra, who employed Brihaspati as his exclusive assistant and minister, is not experienced in affairs, neglecting the Lord. He instead asked me for the three worlds, material happiness, using the Lord and not service to the Lord. Um, what value are the three worlds which change every Manvantara by great speed of time? Our grandfather accepted only service of the servants of the Lord, and not the rulership of the three worlds, which the Lord offered him when he killed his father. He did not even accept liberation in place of no fear, or the
Talking about
place of no fear.
talking about his grandfather was Prahlad Maharaj.
Hmm.
And Hiranyakashipu was his father, and Lord Nrsingadev killed him. And he offered him a benediction, and he didn't want to be tempted by those benedictions because he was coming from a family of demons, and he knew that he might be tempted by that. And so, he just wanted the benediction to serve without any reward. And Bali, even his wives criticized him because he was thinking, I've given everything, I've given the entire universe, right? He gave the three worlds away, and he knew he was going to do it. I mean, he knew his spiritual master, his so-called spiritual master, told him, "Look, this is Vishnu. Don't give him anything. He's a little dwarf, and he asked, kings are supposed to ask for, you're supposed to ask if you're a Brahmana, you can ask a king for any amount, whatever you want, and the king is supposed to give it, especially somebody as rich as somebody like Bali who owned the entire universe. And so he just asked for 3 steps of land. But with the first step, he covered the whole material and spiritual universes, and then he covered or the material world, and then the spiritual world, and then with this he punctured the material covering of the universe with his toe, and the Ganges started falling down. And then he said, "Yeah, I don't have any place to put my third step. Where am I?" His body expanded. So where am I to put my third step? And he said, "Well, you can put it on my head. I surrender my body to you too." But his wives said, this guy's a cheater because he doesn't even know that his body doesn't even belong to him.
Yeah.
So his wives were a little bit intelligent. But we everybody thinks I'm the body. This body's mine. My family's mine. Nothing is mine. Nothing. And anybody who thinks anything is theirs is a thief because everything belongs to Krishna.
Mm.
So, what materially contaminated person like me, devoid of the Lord's mercy, desires to follow a path similar to that of the great devotee Prahlad? Srimad Bhagavatam 5:24-23 through 6. The commentary says, quote, his pure bhakti is described, yet indicates that this is well known. Bali then spoke. Indra neglected Upendra, not desiring him as the Purushartha, tam iti haya. He asked me for the insignificant 3 worlds using the Lord. Anudasyam means being the servant of the Lord's servant. Naya mam nitibritya parshvam, to take me to the side of your servant. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:9-24. Srapritrinam pritiyam means ruling the 3 worlds. Akuta bayam padam means liberation. He did not accept that. Why? Because he considered it to be separate from the Lord. Bhagavatam param iti. Both liberation and kingdom were but shadows of the Lord's amsa. When did he offer this? The Lord offered this when he had killed his father. In other words, Prahlad's father. Shukadev speaks the verse. Okay, you can read the next 2 sentences here.
Um, the Anuccheda 46. The purity of the devotees has been shown by their indifference to happiness and distress, as stated in the Narayana Paraha Sarve, Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28. The Lord removes all else from those whom he shows mercy. O Brahma, intoxicated by wealth, a person becomes arrogant. Thus, he has no respect for anyone within the 3 worlds, not even for me. To such a person, I show special favor by taking away all his possessions. Srimad Bhagavatam 8:22-24.
Yeah, I mean anybody that's a little attached, anybody that's like a devotee but is a little bit attached to material possessions, Krishna will smash that person out of his own mercy. It happened to Prabhupada when he was in Allahabad. He was waiting for his whole life to get rich so he could spread Krishna consciousness, and he had a business in pharmaceutical industry. He had like a chemical business, and somebody broke into his shop and stole everything, took all the money, and his business was ruined. And so he quoted this verse, Harishiye Tadanam Shanai. Hari means Krishna. Krishna has 10 hands. If Krishna wants to take away something from you, he has 10 hands. How much can you hold? If he wants to give you something, he has 10 hands. How much can you take? So, his son, Prabhupada's son, was saying, Prabhupada, my father, why don't you just go back to Allahabad and try to rebuild your business? And Prabhupada started laughing. He just said, this is Krishna's mercy. Because, when Krishna is especially merciful to somebody, he takes away all his wealth so that he becomes completely dependent on me, and all of his family members will despise him, and so he'll become free from any kind of encumbrances from his family members because he can't supply them any more of the wealth, and so they'll get disgusted with him and kick him out. And so this way they won't be entangled anymore in family affairs, and they'll have no other choice but to come to me. And that's why Prabhupada just kind of laughed and said, Hadishyetadanam Shanai. He quoted that verse. Those from upon whom I'm specially merciful, I take away all their possessions and make their relatives hate them. But it happened to me too. I had two jobs in Madison in 1980. And I had worked on the palace, but I still had some material desires. So I left New Vrindavan. I went to where my brother lived, the town, which is in Wisconsin. You know where Madison is, right?
Not really.
Madison is in the southeastern corner of Wisconsin. It's right, it's in the middle of the bottom of the state. You've got Madison and Milwaukee, those two cities.
Mm.
But that's the capital of Madison. It's a really cool town, actually. Big college town. And I was living there and I was working these two jobs and I lost them both for no reason at all. I didn't do anything wrong. And I was fired from two jobs and with no explanation. And I tried to find another job, but I couldn't find another job. And so I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? And so I thought to myself, well, I guess I got to move back to New Vrindavan. And so it was in the middle of the afternoon. I took a nap in my apartment at about 4 o'clock, and I laid down. I was getting these really like lucid dreams, like kind of like 2001 Space Odyssey. These colors were flashing as I was falling asleep, and I started dreaming, and I dreamt that these young uh, girls, like maybe tweens or maybe early teens, they just they were wearing this headdress or some kind of like medieval outfit. I couldn't really make out what it was, but they all came walking into my apartment as I was getting ready to leave. I was packing up boxes and putting, coat hangers in the box. And so this one young lady comes up to me and she says, "So, are you moving to New Vrindavan?" I said, "Yep." And she said, "Do you like Krishna?" And I said, "I always have and I always will." She smiled, most beautiful smile, and then she just turned around and walked out, and all the other girls just followed her out of the apartment. And that was the end of the dream, and I woke up.
Nice.
So that's like Krishna's special mercy, because uh, he takes away everything, and then you don't have any choice. Kind of forces you to take shelter.
Mm.
You can read the next paragraph here. If somehow,
If somehow the Lord's unalloyed devotee develops attraction for artha, dharma, and kama, Lord personally arranges for its removal, vigatam. That mercy is available to the person who has no desire, akinchana gochara. Thus, the Lord removes desires for liberation as well. Akinchana gochara means available by pure bhakti. As explained in Bhakti Sandarbha, Vritra speaks to Indra.
you know who Vritrasura is?
Uh-huh.
Vritra is a big demon, but he's actually a devotee.
Yeah,
He
the
was a
beautiful
devotee.
star.
He was the one that he was actually Chitraketu in his previous life. And Lord Shiva and Parvati were sitting in the midst of sages, and Parvati was sitting on his lap. And Chitraketu started laughing, and he was just like astonished by that situation. And Lord Shiva didn't take any offense to it, but Parvati did, and
Mm.
she cursed him, and so he readily accepted that curse. And so he was actually a devotee. And so, because of his humble attitude, he was a devotee in his next life, even though he was a demon. And Indra killed him, you know.
Yeah, the Vritra is mentioned a lot in the Rig Veda
Yeah.
story of him. It's really cool.
Yeah, he was a huge demon. I mean, he very frightening. But he cut off his head with his thunderbolt. Anyway, we'll go on
Yeah.
here. Anuccheda 47. If sometimes these devotees pray for other things, it is for use in service not for themselves. See, this is a selfless attitude that the devotees have, you know. They might pray for other things other than, you know, their own, other than the benedictions from Krishna, but they use that for service, you know, just like my spiritual master, he'd say, you know, a lot of these so-called gurus, they say, "Oh, money is dirty. I don't want money," you know. My spiritual master said, "If you give me money, I'll grab it and give it to Krishna."
Hmm.
You know, so it just depends on what your focus is, you know, who is your God? If you're doing it as everything for your own sense gratification, or if you're doing everything uh, for your family or nation or whatever, then it's not really devotional service. But if you're doing everything for Krishna and you sacrifice everything for his pleasure without any sense of doing anything for yourself, that's pure devotional service. And that's the attitude the gopis had. They didn't care what happened, you know. Krishna, one time he had a headache. And he said, I need to cure my headache, I need the dust from the feet of a devotee. And he told Narada Muni that. Narada Muni went racing out, you know, all over the universe to try to find a devotee's dust, you know. And he said, "Oh, Krishna has a headache, you know, please give us the dust of your feet so I can put it on his head." And everybody said no, because they knew that if you put the dust from your feet on Krishna's head, you go to hell.
Hmm.
So he went everywhere and he couldn't find anybody. And so finally, he came back to Krishna and he said, "Nobody wants to give me the dust. Nobody, no brahmanas or devotees want to give me the dust on their feet, Krishna. I'm sorry, you know." And he said, "Well, did you try the gopis?" And so he went to the gopis and they said, "Sure, here's some dust," you know, and they gave him the dust of their feet. And then Narada Muni asked him, he said, Don't you know that you can go to hell for putting the dirt from your feet on Krishna's head?" He said, "We don't care if he has a headache, you know, it doesn't matter to us. We can go to hell as long as doesn't have a headache anymore. That's our only concern, you know." And it's funny because somebody mentions, I think, in the purport that Krishna, maybe even Krishna mentioned it to Narada. He said, "Why didn't you give me the dust from your feet?" Narada Muni didn't even offer his own dust from his feet. But the gopis, I guess it's just to glorify the gopis because they're the best selfless servants. They don't care what happens to them. They weren't at
Hmm.
all involved. You know, it looks like sex, desire, or attraction, but it's not really. They only cared about what Krishna wanted. And they didn't have any personal desire for their own pleasure or anything. So that's, you know, the devotees are not supposed to associate with women. And Lord Chaitanya was one of the strictest devotees. I mean, he was the example. I mean, any woman would have to pay obeisances from a long ways away. You know, he wouldn't let any women near him. But at the same time, he uses the gopis as the premier example of selfless service to Krishna. So that means that their service is beyond any kind of bodily conception. If Lord Chaitanya himself accepted their example. So that's why we're called servants of the servants. We're dasa dasa anudas, gopi bartu kamalayar das anudas, which means I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis who are serving Krishna. That's the disciplic succession. We're following in the footsteps of the gopis so that we can get the same attitude that they have. And then Krishna, and if you have the same attitude and Krishna and the gopis bless you, it's really a personal process. You know, that's why Prabhupada's father would always invite these sadhus into their home and feed them, and he would ask them, "Please bless my son, that so that Radharani will be pleased with him." And so every single person that came into their home, he would feed them and ask them to bless Srila Prabhupada or Abai, young Abai, so that Radharani would be pleased. And it worked, you know, because he became very dear to Krishna. And if there's another verse that goes like, if my dear brothers, you know, if here's the secret, if Radharani is pleased with you, then you know your life is successful because she holds the key. If Radharani tells Krishna, you know, please accept this person, Krishna has to accept him because he doesn't deviate from his devotees. His devotees, he is actually completely bound by his devotees' desires. And it's a loving reciprocation. And so Krishna only knows his devotees, and his devotees only know him. And so that's um, especially a confidential devotee like Radharani. Krishna, um, she um, is the attractor of Cupid. It says Krishna is so powerful. He's a supreme personality of Godhead, but he's attracted by her love. And that's the reason he came here as Lord Chaitanya, just to experience that, because he wanted to taste that himself. That's the primary reason he came to this planet, not to spread even the Hare Krishna movement. That was a secondary thing. But the primary reason is because he wanted to figure out what the heck Radharani sees in me that is so wonderful that she is completely in love with me. He wanted to taste that himself, and so that's why he came down in order to relish those desires and those intimate relationships between himself. He took the mood of Radharani. So that's why we're followers of the gopis. Go ahead and read the next couple sentences here, three sentences. Thus, Yudhisthira. Oh, wait,
Um,
I think you're with Permesti, right?
okay, yep. Paramesti here means the Lord of Dwarka, Krishna. The usage is found in the story of Sudama. Dvaktir Jagre Hastam Tat Para Paramestinaha. Devoted goddess Rukmini took hold of Krishna's hand. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:81-10. Thus Yudhisthira desired powers like that of the Lord of Dwarka and Indraprastha. He desired this only because his city should be suitably wealthy for Krishna to live there. It cannot be otherwise. For it is said, did these things give joy to the king whose mind was only fixed on Makunda without deviation from nothing else? Srimad Bhagavatam 1:12-6. It is seen that uh, he attained this position by mercy of the Lord.
Go ahead and read the next one.
It
That's
so, it so happened that Emperor Yudhisthira, the son of Dharma, was sitting, just like Indra, on a golden throne in the assembly hall built by Maya Danava. Present with him were his attendants and family members, and also Krishna, his special eye, displaying the wealth of Brahma himself. King Yudhisthira was being praised by the court poets. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:75, 34-35.
sometimes they would ask Prabhupada, Prabhupada had a fancy cars, sometimes he had like an Avanti, I saw a picture of him today, this like fancy, like modern style car. I don't know if you've ever heard of Avanti, but that's was popular in the early 70s, but, and Rolls Royces and sometimes because they're envious, the reporters would say, "Why do you ride around in a golden car? Why do these your disciples always pay respects and fall down on the ground and worship your feet and all that stuff?" And and Prabhupada would say that you're supposed to honor the spiritual master as you would honor God himself. What are you going to give God if he comes to your house? A Volkswagen? I don't think so. You give him a golden car. And this way, like Emperor Yustir, he had a pretty nice crib. That assembly hall was was even better than Brahma. It's like that place was built by not that demon Mayodhanava because he owed Arjuna some special favors for saving him from the forest fire, I think.
Yeah,
But
yep.
anyway, let's see. Krishna was his eye. This means that Yudhishthira acted only according to Krishna's desire. A person with eyes desires a visible object for the pleasure of his eye. A blind man cannot see this object, but if he closes his eye, the eye becomes useless. Without seeing Krishna, his eye was useless. The sages say to Parikshit about the Pandavas. Go ahead and read those two paragraphs.
O best of kings, it is not surprising that those desiring to associate with the Lord born of the Pandava family and devoted solely to Krishna, immediately gave up the royal throne served by kings' crowns. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:19-20.
They
Therefore,
gave all that
there,
up, didn't they?
oh
They went to
yeah,
the they went to the Himalayas.
I haven't really gotten. I've listened to the story, but just like loosely. I haven't really read it. I haven't gotten to that part reading where
Yeah.
I'm attentively following the story. But yeah, I know that they took off. I don't remember exactly why, but I'm excited to read it someday.
Therefore, you go ahead.
Therefore you should be pleased. Bhavan Amu Anumoditam. The Lord is pleased with those who are dedicated completely to Him. The Lord Himself says, whatever qualities you hope for in order to become devotional, akamaya, and eternally present in you, O auspicious woman, for you are my unalloyed devotee.
I think that's he's speaking to Rukmini. Akama means pure bhakti filled with priti. Without priti means bhakti. Priti means love. That's the name of this book, Priti Sandarbha. It's the final Sandarbha, the quintessence of all the five books that Jiva Goswami wrote. Every other Sandarbha is leading up to this book. It's kind of like the 10th canto if you're looking at the Bhagavatam from that point of view. Kama means pure bhakti filled with priti without any material kama. Kama means lust or sensual desire. Similarly, in akama sarva karma va, akama means having desire only for bhakti. In describing bhakti, Prahlada said, curious about the symptoms of your devotee, you have sent me into a world of enjoyment, the seed of samsara, which creates the knot in the heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:10-3. Go ahead.
Curious about the symptoms of your devotee, you have sent me into a world of enjoyment, the seed of samsara, which creates the knot in the heart. I am your servant, not desiring benefits. You are my master, without dependence on service. Our relationship should be should not be anything else, such as that of a material king and servant. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:10-6. Therefore, a, a kamaya means a wealth of service offered with priti. Whatever things you desire for pure priti, O Devi, are eternally present already, since you are my consort, eternal Lakshmi. A Ekanta Bhaktya Yaha indicates that she is devoid of desire for herself. Kamini Bhamini in this text indicates that she has desire only for the Lord. Kalyani indicates that she shows no obstacles in her pure service. The Lord speaks to Rukmini.
Yeah, Rukmini is the goddess of fortune herself.
Mhm.
And this pastime is like what Krishna is was teasing her because he wanted to see her get mad. He wanted to like enjoy her, frowning eyebrows and curling lips and so he just said, you could have picked all other guys, like Shishupal and all these other great kings. So who am I? Nobody even knows my caste. And so he was demeaning himself, and she took him seriously. She was fanning him on the bed, and she took him seriously. And uh, she was thinking that he was trying to get rid of her, and she actually became overwhelmed with fear, and she dropped her chamara whisk and fell down like a banana tree cut down by a whirlwind. And
Devastated.
and Krishna understood that, she took his joking words seriously, and he manifested four arms so he could pick her up, wipe off her face and pick her up at the same time. And, he just told her, look, I was joking, I was just like trying to enjoy joking words, and so she was pacified. But then she went through every single one of what the points that Krishna made and refuted them all. And this is like these statements of Krishna to Rukmini are at the end, because she was such a selfless person. She didn't want anything for herself, and that's why she was so shocked that Krishna would want to leave her. And and she took everything he said seriously. Whereas, Satyabhama, that was kind of his other queen. You know, Rukmini got a parijata flower, and those are like really heavenly flowers, And so Satyabhama saw that Rukmini got a flower, so she was pissed, and so she went to Krishna and said, I want not only the parijata flower, I want the whole damn tree. And so Krishna, being a henpecked husband, he had to go to the Indra's planet, rip out that tree, and fight and have a huge battle with Indra just to please his wife,
Mm.
Satyabhama. And so Satyabhama was not like, she was kind of like a fiery, consort. She didn't like, you know, the fact that Rukmini might have been more dear to Krishna than her, and so she wanted a favor too from Krishna. I just find it amusing that Krishna makes all these pastimes and makes it seem like he's an ordinary henpecked husband, you know?
Mm.
It's really interesting the way, and that's what makes Krishna so wonderful because, it's like a lot of sages and devotees and even demigods are worshiping Krishna, in the Vaikuntha atmosphere with awe and reverence. But I worship the Krishna that's crawling on his hands and knees on the back of in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. It's just like his human-like pastimes are just so inconceivable and sweet that it just just the fact that he's afraid of Mother Yashoda. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's afraid of his mother, and
Mm.
he's running away from her, and she had to catch him and bind him up to the grinding mortar, and he had tears in his eyes, and it was just so beautiful. I mean, that's such a wonderful pastime. That's why every October we meditate on that pastime because it just shows that Krishna, even though nobody can bind Krishna, every single time she tried to tie him up, she brought all the ropes from the house, and every single time it was like two fingers too short because Krishna refused to be bound. Even though he's the same size, it just didn't work until Krishna just like saw how she was sweating and how much she was endeavoring, and so he agreed to be bound by her because she was his mother. So nobody can be more fortunate than Yashoda, because she was able to control the Supreme Personality of Godhead by that love.
Mm.
But I think we're going to stop here because before we go on, this next one is a little bit longer on Anuccheda, but I
Okay.
wanted to stop here and then.
There you go
But
get your pizza.
if do you have any questions or anything? Any comments about the previous three verses?
No, thank you for having me. Though. I really appreciate you having me and reading with me and stuff. I really like these topics and
Yeah, yeah,
listening and doing. I
yeah.
really appreciate
It's
it.
just unlimited. You can't get the end of it because every time you read it, I've already read this, but every time I read it, it's like something new pops up. Krishna
Nice.
is Nava Yovana, which means ever fresh. He's always fresh. The past time, maybe I told you this, but when Prabhupada was in Mexico City with Sri Dayananda, Sri Dayananda's big guru down in Florida, and he was his personal servant back in the 70s. And Prabhupada had just gotten a new copy of the Bhagavatam, and he was reading in his room, and he called Hridayananda into his room. He said, "Have you read these books?" And Hridayananda said, "Yes, sure, Prabhupada, I've read the books." And Prabhupada said, "Aren't they wonderful?"
Mm.
He wrote the books, but he's thinking they're so wonderful because Krishna is speaking through him. He didn't really write the books. I mean, even he said that. Prabhupada's saying, I'm just trying to, surrender to my spiritual master and he tells me what to write. He's just like he's connected with Krishna through his spiritual master. So he was always connected. He never forgot his spiritual master even a moment. And that's the
Mm.
way he wrote all these wonderful Vedic literatures. Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.